It's time for 1410 Wing Live. We have former Ravens Super Bowl winning head coach and NFL Network's Brian Billick, who's good enough to join us here today on 1410 Wing Live. Coach, welcome in, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great this morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I want to start things off. We were talking before hitting the air here. You were born in Fairborn, correct? A lot of people brought that up yesterday. Really cool.
Yeah, my father was originally from Toledo. My mother's from Marietta, and he was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base after the war. And so my whole family, we were all there out at Wright-Pat. And in fact, we're moving back, as you can tell, as I'm kind of cleared out here. We're actually moving back to Columbus, where my daughter and my grandsons are.
Really nice, really nice. With that being said, I hope you and your family are all safe and healthy during these times. And again, one more time, I appreciate you hitting that with us. So tomorrow night, NFL Network, 8 p.m. Eastern, the NFL schedule release. Everyone's looking forward to that, at least from a fan perspective. I'm curious, you being a former coach, is this like a fan ordeal, or did you and players always look forward to the schedule release too? How much of a role did you guys play in that?
I always enjoyed it because and typically the schedule is done just before the draft. Obviously, it's a little bit different because of the circumstances. But to me, the combination of the draft and the schedule release, okay, the season was real. I mean, you knew who you were going to play and you knew where, but you didn't know when. Now, obviously, given the unique circumstances, that still might be a little up in the air. But for me, traditionally, it was always, okay, now we can begin the season. Now it's real because I've got my team, so to speak. You got draft choices, free agency, you're pretty much done. And you know when and where and who you're going to be. You can start thinking about the order of it. It was an exciting time when I was coaching.
Absolutely. And a lot of times, especially when you got teams like the Browns and Bengals who are just grasping for every win that they could possibly get. I'm curious to see what how the progression for Joe Burrow is going to be as far as being eased into the season. That's been the big talk all offseason in the NFL draft, the Bengals getting Joe Burrow. How much pressure is on Joe Burrow in 2020, in your opinion, with all the money that they've spent this offseason?
Well, anytime you're the first overall pick, there's always pressure, and he's up to it. He came out of a pretty pressurized situation, obviously, with everything that he did last year. You don't get any bigger than LSU and the expectations and their drive towards a championship. He seems a fairly calm individual in terms of handling it all. Being from Ohio, it's got to mean a lot to him as well. But there again, the expectations, you got to remember, the Bengals have got a ways to go. So the arrival of Joe Burrow in and of itself, they're going to have to do a whole lot of other things. And so, as this thing gets pieced together, coming out of his rookie year, if you can go in, if he can be a little above 60%, be anything above a touchdown to interception ratio 1-to-1 is kind of a plus. Kind of minimalist expectations, even though you are the number one pick. Main thing is he's got to show early that this is not too big for him. And one of the hardest things to do is always to separate the play of the quarterback from what's going on around him. How much is the quarterback and how much of it is what's going on around him?
It's funny that when we talk about rookie quarterbacks now, I feel like there is a lot more pressure on rookie quarterbacks to succeed right away, mainly because you look at teams and they have 4 years with the quarterback on a rookie deal to be able to maximize their dollars elsewhere. But it also adds to the pressure when you look at players like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson who have had instant success in year 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's a first round pick. Doesn't sound like it should be that way, but at best is a 50-50 crapshoot. And we've seen that time and again. That players, even though all the research and everything you put into them, there's no reason why certainly Joe Burrow should not be good. Of course, there was no reason why Vince Young and Jamarcus Russell and Eddie, and Harrington and that whole group. I mean, the list goes on and on. Ryan Leaf of players that should have been good and for whatever reason weren't. So, a first-round pick. But then on the flip side of that is because you have guys like Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson that fell a little bit. And how bad do those teams that passed on them look? But that have this unbelievable success. Certainly when you look at what's going on in Baltimore and Lamar, what he's doing, all but the 32nd pick of the draft, still a first-round pick. yeah, you look at that, and believe me, owners do too, and going, well, our guy should be that. So when you take a guy in the first round, for my money, you got to play him. And he's got to show quick that he's going to be that guy, because there are those expectations because of the success of guys that have done it in the first round, even though the overwhelming statistics tell you that it's a crapshoot.
NFL Network's Brian Billick with us here on 1410 Wing Live. You talk about quarterbacks, being expected to play right away if taken in the first round. What was your takeaway when you saw that the Green Bay Packers traded up to grab Jordan Love?
Well, the irony of it all. I mean, for the Green Bay Packers to come up in, I think it was 26, to bring into now Aaron Rodgers, who fell to 24, came into a future Hall of Famer in Brett Favre at 15 years in Brett's career, at age 36 roughly, and it's exactly where Aaron is right now. It's got to be a little deja vu for him. And remember, Aaron Rodgers then kind of rode the pine for about 3 years. But let's also remember that transition wasn't the smoothest in the world. And Aaron, even though he'll handle it and says he's in great shape and he'll do everything he can to mentor him, he's on the clock, and there's no question about it, and he knows that.
All right, we got Brian Billick with us. The last time we spoke, when you were on the show about a year ago, we were talking about the Cleveland Browns and who they were going to replace Freddie Kitchens with. They're able to replace him with Coach Stefanski at this point. They've added to that roster. They're stuck with OBJ. Is it smart of the organization to keep this nucleus intact and not just keep it intact on the offensive end, but add Hooper and add other key pieces to this? And what concerns do you have for the Browns? What holes do they have in 2020?
Well, let's remember last year the tough thing was the expectations. And I was one of them that said, okay, they were the darlings of the NFL, and I was all in. I was picking them to win the division. The moves that they had made, certainly the second half of the season that they had in terms of some of the success they had and what Baker Mayfield has done, his touchdown to interception ratio. But I did make the observation going in. Now with those expectations going in, how do you deal with those expectations? The latter half of 2 years ago, he could just let it fly. And the mentality was, okay, what am I going to do? Throw an interception? Oh, so we lose another game? What's new? So he could let it go. He could just let the thing go. And he was very impressive. Well, now there's a price to pay. And so, I think you could see they were carrying that pressure a little early. And as things started out not going well, it kind of compounded. I think they have the opportunity this year because the expectations aren't necessarily there. Now we certainly have the elements to be the team that everybody thought we were going to be last year. The new coaching staff will come in. It gives them also an opportunity, whether it's OBJ, whether it's Baker Mayfield, kind of, restart and going, yeah, that was the other guys. It was those coaches' fault. And if they buy into it, and OBJ, we did a thing on the NFL Network last night where he's tweeting out he's going to have the best year ever. He's in great shape. Can't wait for the season to start. If they come in with the right mentality, it's very possible they could live up to all the expectations that they went into last year with.
Baker Mayfield, is he more of what you saw in year one as a rookie, or do you think that the flaws he had last season, is that more of his game? What do you expect of him in 2020?
We're going to find out, aren't we? And that's really, this is going to kind of be the tiebreaker because he's got kind of that swashbuckler mentality, which is great. This is who I am. Okay. Well, and I was used to, anybody can throw an interception. I mean, you throw the ball up 50 times in a game and have 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Well, how good are you really? Jameis Winston comes to mind when you talk about that transition that could be brilliant. And it was from week to week, 4 touchdown performance, and the next week 4 interception performance. So, being a quarterback and being an elite quarterback, to me, you've got to be in that 2-to-1 category. If you're talking about the really good players, and I'm talking about the Drew Breeses and Peyton Mannings of the world, and they're going to be up there 2-to-1. Tom Brady, is brilliant at 3-to-1. It underlines just how good Aaron Rodgers is. He's in a stratus 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. So that's really, to me, the most telling mark. Can Baker Mayfield let it fly, to be all the things that he wants to feel like he can be, but still keeping that 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio? Otherwise, you're a guy that's just let it flail around, and I can get anybody to come in and throw an interception.
Coach, most backup quarterbacks that are free agents usually sign one-year deals because they want to be able to reevaluate the quarterback market the following season. With that being said, did you find it odd at all that Case Keenum committed to be a Baker's backup for 3 seasons, or could there be something to that he might feel confident that the job could be his if Baker doesn't work out in 2020?
Well, we're as deep in good quarterback play as we've ever been, and we have some very good proven quarterbacks, whether it's a Nick Foles and Andy Dalton, whether it's a Cam Newton, that had been on the street and had to find homes. So this is good quality quarterback play in the backup position. Talking about Andy Dalton, everybody's saying, well, what does that mean for Dak Prescott? It doesn't mean a thing for Dak Prescott. It means the Dallas Cowboys feel like they're a pretty good team. They were willing to expend the resources to get a good veteran, solid backup in case, God forbid, something happened to Dak Prescott. They still think they're good enough that they can survive and keep going forward. The quarterback competition with Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky in Chicago, I don't know what kind of competition it's really going to be. A lot of pressure, obviously, on Matt Nagy, because no matter what, there's really no right way to do that. I mean, this thing is fraught with a lot of pitfalls for Matt Nagy because at some point, if you go with Trubisky, which he probably is going to do, how quick a hook do you have on him if things don't go well? If you go with Nick Foles, the problem is if Nick Foles goes in, doesn't do well, okay, now Mitchell Trubisky comes in, doesn't do well, they're going to fire you. If Foles doesn't do well, Trubisky comes in and does really, really well, and you've only won so many games, they're going to go, well, why'd you pull him in the first place? And they're going to fire you over that. So, the whole backup quarterback situation, Cam Newton, I think wisely is going to wait and see. An opportunity will present itself because of injury that will probably suit Cam Newton best.
All right, Coach, last thing, and we'll let you go. We appreciate your time here today. The AFC North, I think, is the most fascinating division in the NFL this season. I mean, Joe Burrow's first year in Cincinnati, it feels like a breath of fresh air for the Bengals for the first time in decades. The Cleveland Browns, they have year 2 of excitement under the Baker era. Lamar Jackson, 2 years in the league, 2 AFC division titles, an MVP under his belt, and then Big Ben coming back to the Steelers. How do you see the AFC North shaking out in your opinion?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's going to be very competitive top to bottom. Baltimore, Kansas City are the cream of the crop in both the AFC and the NFL as a whole. The explosiveness of the defending world champions in Kansas City, Baltimore, and the unique things that they're doing, that combination. I mean, their time of possession, they typically, you're talking 34, 35, 36 minutes time of possession. If you go a 3 and out, your opening drive, you may not see the ball again until the second quarter. So, and they're retooling. They've had a great draft. So I still think Baltimore is maybe the one everybody's going to have to chase down. But you're right, with Big Ben back in Pittsburgh, maybe now with the expectations muted, that Cleveland truly can be the team we thought they were going to be last year. And certainly Cincinnati's got to be better than they were last year. So, could be a very intriguing division this year.
Absolutely. All right. Give Coach Billick a follow on Twitter at Coach Billick. Brian Billick with the NFL Network. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern, NFL Network will have a 3-hour special revealing the 2020 NFL schedules for all NFL teams. Coach Billick, thanks so much for your time. Much appreciated.
Glad to do it.